To discuss further this topic of the G20 and its endorsement of the vaccine passport concept advanced at the moment by the World Health Organization, I'm very pleased to say we have with us Leo Hohmann, a man who has had a distinguished career as an investigative journalist, publishing in any number of important outlets, including Front Page Magazine, LifeSite News, The Drudge Report, Global Research, Gateway Pundit, and WorldNet Daily. He's also the author of Stealth Invasion, really important book about the early stages of the immigration crisis, something on which he has been a specialist for years. We've asked Leo Hohmann to discuss with us this topic of what the G20 has now done in its declaration endorsing vaccine passports and effectively putting in motion mandates for their use pursuant to the direction of the World Health Organization and its Director General, Tedros Ghebreyesus, a, proxy for, puppet of the Chinese Communist Party. Leo Hohmann, welcome, and over to you.
Thank you, Frank, so much for having me back on. The problem, as I see it, is most Americans still don't see the face of the enemy. And because they don't see who exactly the enemy is, they cooperate with it on a daily basis. The enemy's much bigger than Biden or even the Biden administration. Yes, it lives in the usual places, Washington, D.C., New York City, San Francisco, but it also lives within smaller cities. And in fact, it's right inside most of our own homes. It's inside our cars. It has a connection to your laptop, your cell phone, your Ring doorbell system, your Alexa, your robot vacuum cleaner, your digitally equipped refrigerator, your smart meter utility connection, your doctor's office, your health insurance plan, your retirement plan, your children's schools, many of our churches, and the boardrooms of the major companies that we work for. As the world now stands, it is everywhere. It's digital, it's connected. Some are calling it the Internet of Eyes. By the end of 2022, this year, there will be 1 billion of these eyes, high-resolution digital cameras connected to the Internet in cities across the world. This is what I call the beast system. Right now, there's dozens of pilot programs being launched around the world on how to create and manage this new digital control. It's basically a control grid. The New York Fed just announced last week that they have a pilot program going on where they're going to be working with about a half a dozen big banks to look into the logistics of creating a central bank digital currency, a CBDC. The G20 leaders issued a statement last week on the need for digital health passports, as Reggie had already talked about. So the leaders of the G20, this is the 20 largest economies in the world, all agreed that this is a good thing and something that we should strive to implement on a global basis. We must get the word out, folks. The vaccine passports of 2021 are not dead. That was just a dry run, in my opinion, for what's coming if we let them get away with it. Have you heard any of the candidates in last week's election talking about this? I haven't. Also, just in the last few days, Scotland's government announced they're rolling out a new digital ID platform, a single ID number that will be required to access all public services. That includes Social Security, the national healthcare system, banking. It will be all connected, and Experian Credit Scoring Company is going to have a tie-in to this system, if that tells you anything. Canada has been working on a similar program, which they were openly advertising last year. They will be selling the digital ID to the public based on 3 key words: safety, security, and convenience. Whenever you hear one or more of these three words connected to a new digital product, run from it. It's part of the ruse to draw you into a global surveillance system that will lead to a social credit scoring system along the lines of what China already has in place. The infrastructure for this system, folks, is already largely in place in America and in the Western world. We just don't know it yet. It's a well-known fact that Joe Biden is, as Frank has rightly called him on several occasions. I've heard Frank Gaffney call him a, quote, wholly owned subsidiary of the CCP. But we ended up with Joe. France keeps ending up with Macron, Canada with Trudeau, New Zealand with Jacinda Ardern, the Netherlands with Mark Rutte. You see the pattern? Every one of these Western leaders is a stooge of the World Economic Forum, which is the driving force behind the digital global ID system and the global digital money system that they're trying to get in place to replace cash. And as Reggie mentioned, it's not just digital, it's programmable. It's well past time that we realize the governments of the formerly free world are no longer representing their people or their countries. They're selling us off using our data as a commodity to the highest bidders in the tech industries. None of them should be in power. Most were installed illegitimately. We personally, as human beings, are being viewed by these technocratic elites at the G20 as nothing more than human capital, raw material like any other physical asset, not unique human beings with a soul and a free will. And they now have robots to do most of the jobs that we humans used to do. This is where the climate agenda comes into play. It's not about the environment. It's about depopulating the world and increasing the level of control over our lives among those of us who remain. We still have time to defeat this beast system, but time is running short. We are going to see a convergence in the months ahead. 2023 is going to be a key year where we see a convergence of the digital dollars with the digital ID system. When this happens, the beast system will be fully built out with a full-blown social credit scoring system. Most of it has already been built out, especially on the digital ID front. They just need to do more work on the digital money system, and then they will marry the two together, and bingo, we all become slaves. This is the social credit scoring system, and it will eventually be used to kick you out of the system if you don't obey and submit to the system's values. Now, what are these values? They've already told us. Abortion on demand, no questions asked, from the entire 9 months right up to birth. No male or female, just various forms of hybrids and transgenders. No First Amendment rights, because remember, we don't have a free will or a soul. No private property rights. Cars are bad. Acreage is bad. Land is bad. And what you do on land is bad. Things like burning wood in your fireplace, that's bad. No bodily autonomy. You must prove your vaccine status. You must eat bugs. No freedom of movement, no privacy, no public services. That includes health care, social security, etc., without a digital ID. So we need to prepare for life outside this system, and because if they're successful, they will eventually kick you out of the system anyway. This is the resurrection, in my opinion, of the Tower of Babel and the Babylonian system. It does have a spiritual element to it, which I won't get into here today. But how do we prepare for it? Get back to basics. Think at a micro level. We're so used to thinking at a macro level. Who are we going to get in the White House? Who are we going to get in the U.S. Senate seats? This idea that in order to defeat the cabal, we must get Trump elected or we must get DeSantis elected, that would be nice, but I don't think it's going to happen. I truly believe we are entering a post-election global system. And even if it did happen, do any of the politicians really understand this system? We must also develop a keen eye for the enemy's tentacles And then we must also develop an iron will to say no. We won't go along with any element of this techno-totalitarian system. Because in the end, even if we do end up with Trump or DeSantis in the White House, we'll still have big banks, big tech, big pharma, and the rest of the corporate superstructure trying to drive us into the beast system. In the end, they don't care if they get your vote as long as they get your obedience.